You are stuck, and you know it. It is not a lack of effort. It is not a lack of will. It is something that goes beyond what you can solve alone, an invisible pressure that weighs on the chest, that blocks what should flow, that repeats the same cycles year after year, as if a giant hand were holding back everything that should advance in your life. Today I am going to tell you who the spiritual being is that was placed by God specifically to break this type of blockage. And more than that, I will show you how to activate this protection in your life right now. His name is Michael, and what you will discover here will change the way you view the spiritual battle happening around you. Stay until the end, because the most important part comes in the final minutes. Let us begin with a direct question. How many times have you tried to start over and failed? How many times have you prayed, believed, waited, and the answer did not come in the form you needed? How many times did you feel you were progressing, and suddenly something knocked everything back to point zero? This is not bad luck. This is not a lack of faith. This has a very clear spiritual explanation, and the Bible speaks about it directly. There is a battle happening behind the scenes of your life. A real spiritual war with real enemies, acting in dimensions that your physical eyes cannot see. And while you fight on the physical plane, the origin of your problems is at a level that demands a response of another nature. That is where the Archangel Michael enters. In the book of Daniel, chapter 10, the prophet was fasting and praying for 21 days without receiving an answer. 21 days of absolute silence, and when the angel finally appeared to him, he revealed what was happening in that silence. There was an intense spiritual battle being waged in the invisible plane, and it was Michael, described as one of the chief princes, who entered the conflict and ensured that the answer reached Daniel. 21 days of battle that Daniel did not see. But that was happening in his favor. This should completely change the way you interpret your periods of spiritual silence. Before continuing, I need you to understand who Michael truly is. Not the superficial version that most know, but the spiritual depth of this being described in the scriptures. The name Michael in Hebrew is a question that is also a declaration. Who is like God? This question is a positioning. It is the proclamation that there is no power, authority, or force comparable to the Most High. And Michael carries this name as identity and as mission. In the letter of Jude, verse 9, Michael disputes with the devil himself over the body of Moses. He does not flee. He does not retreat. He faces him directly with the authority of one who has divine backing. In Revelation chapter 12, it is Michael who leads the celestial army in the battle that expels Satan from heaven. The text says there was war in heaven, and that Michael and his angels prevailed. And in Daniel chapter 12, verse 1, he is described with a specific and powerful function. At that time, Michael shall stand up, the great prince who stands, watch over the sons of your people. He stands for his people. He stands for your family, for your home, for your life. But there is something that most people do not realize about how Michael operates. And when you understand this, you will stop looking for answers only on the physical plane. Michael does not act with spectacle. He acts with precision. Do not expect thunder, dramatic visions, or cinematic dreams in most cases. The angelic action described in the Bible is silent, strategic, and specific. It is a conversation that happens in the right place, a decision you take differently than usual without knowing exactly why, a door that opens where before there was only a wall. It is Michael acting. The problem is that we have been conditioned by the modern world to demand immediate evidence. We want results at the speed of a cell phone message, and when the spiritual response does not come in 48 hours, we conclude that nothing is happening. But Daniel waited 21 days. Abraham waited decades. Joseph spent years imprisoned before the throne. The faith that moves the spiritual plane is not the faith that lasts a week. It is the faith that remains firm when everything around screams that nothing is changing. Now I need to speak about something that few people have the courage to touch, but which is one of the main causes of spiritual blockage in the life of a person over 35 years old. It is called generational iniquity. It seems like a technical term, but it is simple. They are patterns of pain, failure, and defeat that pass from generation to generation within a family, like an inheritance that no one asked for, but everyone receives. The grandfather who drank and never achieved stability. The mother who carried deep bitterness and never managed to forgive. The father who worked his whole life but never prospered. The chain of destroyed relationships that repeats from son to son, from grandson to grandson. This is not coincidence. This is a spiritual chain that operates in the invisible plane and manifests in very concrete ways in the physical plane. Have you stopped to observe the patterns of your family? The same financial difficulties repeated in different generations? The same types of relationships that end in the same way? The same feeling that there is an invisible ceiling that no one can surpass? If so, you are not seeing human weakness. You are seeing the manifestation of a spiritual chain that needs to be broken. And Michael, as a spiritual warrior with authority in the invisible plane, acts directly in this field of battle. Now I need to be direct with you about something that will hurt a little. One of the main reasons why so many people remain trapped in these cycles, even being people of faith, even attending church, even praying regularly, is that they have never positioned themselves as heirs of the promises of God. There is a huge difference between knowing that you are a child of God and living as a child of God. Many Christians have the theological knowledge. They know they have access to the promises. They know that the angels are ministers sent in their favor. The letter to the Hebrews, chapter 1, verse 14, is crystal clear. Angels are ministering spirits sent forth to minister for those who will inherit salvation. Sent to serve the heirs, but the majority live as spiritual orphans who found the adoption papers, read their own name written on them, and yet did not go to live in the Father's house. They live in the courtyard. They know the house is theirs, but they do not enter, and the consequence is exactly what you have been feeling. The sensation that the blessing is near, but never reachable. That you are getting close, but something always pushes you back. That you know the promises, but they seem valid for everyone except you. This must end today. That is why I prepared the powerful digital book for you. While you heard about generational chains, about spiritual blockages, about this sensation of being trapped in a cycle that you yourself did not create, something inside you recognized this reality. You know I'm speaking about your life, and this recognition did not come by chance. There is something happening in the spiritual plane around you now, a restlessness that you have carried for longer than you admit, a sensation that something needs to change, that there is a deeper level of understanding that you have not yet accessed. The digital book, How to Know If God Will Save You at the Final Judgment, was created for this moment of your journey. Not for those who already have everything resolved, for those who feel there is something deeper to understand, for those who want to be sure, for those who carry family and responsibility, and a faith that sometimes wavers but never completely goes out. This material will take you to a level of spiritual understanding that will transform the way you fight, how you pray, and how you view the battle around you. The link is in the video description and at the top of the comments. Access it now. This content may be taken down without notice, and the decision you make here could be the turning point you are waiting for without knowing. Comment Michael down below as a declaration that you want this active protection in your life. Continuing. I will tell you about a woman I will call Marlene, 49 years old, a teacher in the interior of Minas Gerais. 3 children, a 22-year marriage, an apparently stable life on the outside, but inside a growing sensation that something was fundamentally wrong on the spiritual plane. Marlene went to Mass every Sunday. She prayed the rosary. She participated in the parish prayer groups, but inside she felt an emptiness that no religious practice could fill, a restlessness that she described as a feeling that I was praying to the ceiling. The marriage had entered a cycle of silent distance. The eldest son was drifting away from home with friendships that caused concern. Her health had begun to show warning signs that doctors could not fully explain. One early morning, at the darkest point of her spiritual crisis, Marlene did something different from usual. Instead of repeating the usual prayer, she simply spoke. She opened her heart completely without a filter. The anger, the fear, the disappointment with God, the feeling of abandonment. And she asked with all the strength she had that Michael, the celestial prince, would come to fight the battles she could no longer fight. In the following days, things began to move in ways she cannot rationally explain to this day. A conversation with her husband that had been stuck for months finally happened. The eldest son returned home on his own after an experience he described as feeling like I was being pulled back. An exam that doctors were monitoring with concern came back normal, unexpectedly. Marlene does not call it coincidence, she calls it intervention. And what she describes is in direct line with what the Word of God teaches about how angels operate in favor of those who invoke them with genuine faith. Now I need to tell you about something that happens specifically to people over 35 years old in the spiritual journey. Something that is rarely spoken of, but affects most people in this phase of life. It is called the silent erosion of faith. It is not a dramatic rupture. You do not wake up one day and decide to stop believing. It is a slow, gradual, almost imperceptible process that begins when adult life hits with full force. It starts when responsibilities increase and the time to care for spirituality decreases. Prayers become shorter. The Bible goes to the shelf and stays for weeks without being opened. Church attendance decreases with justifications that are always very reasonable. The relationship with God is gradually replaced by a surface religiosity, one that fulfills external rituals but has no fire, no presence, no real encounter. And then the consequence arrives. You continue calling yourself a Christian. You continue believing in God in an abstract way, but your spiritual life has more absence than presence, more obligation than love, more routine than revelation. If you recognize yourself in any part of this, know that you are not alone, and know that this erosion is not permanent. It can be reversed, and the Archangel Michael is one of God's instruments to awaken souls that have gradually faded out. Revelation chapter 3 has a passage that impacts me deeply every time I read it. Jesus speaking to the church of Laodicea, a community that was neither cold nor hot. It was lukewarm, and he says bluntly, "So then, because you are lukewarm and neither cold nor hot, I will vomit you out of my mouth." Strong words, but necessary, because spiritual tepidity is the most dangerous state a Christian can be in. It is not declared atheism, it is not open rebellion, it is belief without fire, faith without movement, religiosity without presence. And the cure for tepidity is not in doing more religious things. It is not in increasing the quantity of mechanical prayers or church attendance. The cure is in a real encounter, a moment of interior rupture where you decide, consciously, that you no longer want to live on the margins of God's presence. This video can be that moment for you. That is why I prepared the powerful digital book for you. You are at this point now, not by accident. Something brought you here to this message, to this moment. And if you stop to listen to what is happening inside you while you watch, you will realize that there is an answer being formed, a decision being forged. The tepidity that the Lord rejects is not human weakness. It is a choice, and the choice to leave it is also yours. The digital book, How to Know If God Will Save You at the Final Judgment, will confront you with truths that most people avoid, because it is more comfortable not to know. But false spiritual comfort saves no one. Do you want comfort or do you want certainty? The link is in the description and at the top of the comments. Access it now. While this restlessness is still alive in you, do not let it pass as just another forgotten moment. Returning to the heart of the message, there is something that needs to be understood about how Michael acts specifically in relation to the family. In the scriptures, Michael is not just an individual protector. He is described as a prince with territorial authority. In Daniel chapter 10, the angel who appears to the prophet mentions the prince of the kingdom of Persia as a spiritual force operating over that nation. And Michael is presented as the prince who represents and protects the people of God in that territorial dimension. This means that when you invoke Michael's protection over your family, you are activating a spiritual authority that operates over a territory, not just over an individual, over an entire environment, over a home, over the relationships that exist within that home. Think of what this means practically. When you have a child who is losing themselves in destructive choices, when your marriage is being eroded by a bitterness, that came from somewhere you cannot identify. When your house, which should be a place of peace, has become a battlefield of inexplicable tensions. When you feel there is a heavy atmosphere over your family that goes beyond any normal human problem. This has a spiritual dimension, and the solution is also spiritual. Michael was placed as a protecting prince, and he is available to establish authority over the territory of your family when you, as the spiritual head of that home, position this request with genuine faith before God. Now I need to tell you about a truth that many people know, but few people actually live. The Bible is clear in Psalm 91. He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. And further on, for he shall give his angels charge over you, to keep you in all your ways. Orders, not suggestions, not possibilities, orders. The angels receive orders from God to guard those who dwell in the secret place of the Most High, but the condition is to dwell, not to visit, not to show up when the crisis hits. To dwell. Dwelling in the secret place of the Most High means living in constant spiritual alignment. It means that your life, your decisions, your priorities point in the direction of God, not only in moments of crisis, but in the routine. And that is where many people lose the protection that was already available. Because they seek God when the crisis arrives, resolve the crisis, give thanks, and leave. Until the next crisis. An eternal cycle of spiritual emergency followed by distancing. Michael is not an emergency service that you activate when the situation becomes critical. He is a protecting prince who operates over the life of those who maintain alignment, of those who dwell, not of those who visit. This leads me to something very practical that I want to give you now. 3 spiritual positionings that activate Michael's protection in your life. They are not rituals. They are not magic formulas. They are alignments that place you in the position of an heir who receives what is already yours. First positioning, prayer with real specificity. Stop praying in the vague. Name the battle. Place before God with clarity what is under attack in your life, your marriage, the health of a child, your financial situation, your emotional health. God does not need specificity to know, but you need it to understand the real dimension of what you are asking and to strengthen the faith that accompanies the request. Second positioning, declare the word over the situation. Psalm 91 is not just a beautiful text to read in a crisis. It is a declaration of spiritual authority. When you read it aloud and with intention, applying it over your life and over your family, you are activating in the spiritual plane the reality that already exists in the celestial plane. Third positioning, act before seeing the result. This is the most difficult positioning and the most powerful. The heroes of faith in the Bible acted before seeing. Noah built the boat before the rain. Joshua shouted victory before the walls fell. The action that precedes the evidence is the clearest sign of genuine faith that exists. Ask yourself, if I knew that Michael is already fighting for my family now, how would I act differently today? Act that way. Now. I need to pause here and ask you directly. Are you praying for your family, or are you waiting for your children, your spouse, the people you love to find the spiritual path on their own? Because there is a spiritual responsibility that belongs to the head of the family. It is not religious. It is spiritual. It is the responsibility of being the portal of protection for your home. When you pray over your family, when you invoke spiritual protection over your home, when you declare the word of God over the lives of the people you love, you are exercising an authority that God placed in you and that no one else can exercise in the place that is yours. No pastor prays with the same authority that a father prays for his son. No cell leader has the position that you have within your own family. This responsibility is yours, and Michael is waiting for you to assume it. There is a question that no human being should push under the rug indefinitely. A question that most people avoid because it is uncomfortable, because it forces one to think about things that the routine anesthetizes. What happens after? Not in an abstract philosophical way. What does the Bible teach about the final judgment? About what separates those on the right from those on the left? About what is truly evaluated? About what truly saves? And Michael is involved in this too. As a celestial prince, as a warrior of the Most High, he does not appear only in the historical books of the Scriptures. He is a figure present in the end-time events described in Revelation and in Daniel. This should interest anyone who takes their faith seriously, not out of fear, out of preparation. Most people live the religious journey as if the final judgment were a distant theory, as if it were something to think about after the children grow up, after the company stabilizes, after retirement. But the Bible does not speak of an indefinite after. It speaks of an hour that no one knows, of a call that can sound when you least expect it. And the question that resonates on every page of the New Testament is only one. Are you ready? I do not ask this to create panic. I ask because it is the most important question anyone can ask. It is the Father asking the Son, do you know what to do when I call? That is why I prepared the powerful digital book for you. You have come this far. You heard about Michael, about spiritual battle, about territorial protection, about generational iniquity, about your role as the spiritual head of your family. And now, at this point where we speak about the end times and the final judgment, something inside you is responding. It is not fear. It is spiritual consciousness. It is the recognition that there is something deeper happening than the daily routine allows one to see. The digital book, How to Know If God Will Save You at the Final Judgment, was created to go deep into this question, with real, deepened biblical truths that most Christians have never heard in the church pew, not to scare, to prepare, to give certainty where doubt exists, to transform vague faith into solid conviction, because the certainty of salvation is not arrogance. It is the fruit of a mature and real faith. The link is in the video description and at the top of the comments. Access it now while this restlessness is still alive in you. Do not postpone what is being placed before you today. Spiritual procrastination is one of the most silent and effective weapons the enemy uses. Comment I believe if you feel that God is speaking to you through this message. I want to see your comment. Before closing, I need to leave you with 4 declarations of faith to make out loud right now. It does not need a special environment. You do not need to be alone. It only needs sincerity. First, I recognize that there is a spiritual battle happening in my life and around my family. Second, I open the doors of my home to the protection and authority of the Most High over every area that is under attack. Third, I renounce every generational chain, every pattern of defeat, and every negative spiritual inheritance that reached me without my permission. Fourth, I assume my place as an heir of the promises of God and no longer as a spiritual orphan. If you made these declarations, something moved in the invisible plane. Not because words have magic, but because God honors the heart that deliberately turns to Him with real faith. You have reached the end of this video, and that is not a small thing. Most people abandon before the middle, but you stayed, you heard, you recognized. And if you are here, it is because there is something being activated in your spiritual life that is greater than the habit of watching content on YouTube. The Archangel Michael is not a character from a distant biblical story. He is the great prince who stands for the people of God, described in the Scriptures as active, present, and involved in the battles that matter most. He stands for His people, for your family, for your home, and the protection you need is not beyond your reach. It is one decision away. The digital book, How to Know If God Will Save You at the Final Judgment, is the next practical step I recommend for you who have come this far. The link is in the video description and at the top of the comments. Access it now, while this flame is still lit inside you. Subscribe to the channel and activate the bell. What is shared here is not common content. It is a message for those who are truly seeking. And before closing this video, comment one word here, just one. The one that summarizes what you are feeling now. It could be protection, it could be fire, it could be peace, it could be amen. May the Archangel Michael be over your life, over your family, and over everything that belongs to you. May every chain be broken. May every closed door be opened. And may you never again have to live as an orphan when you already have the documents of a child in your hands. Until the next video,